The ruins of Karen Prime were silent, broken only by the distant hum of alien machines and the crackle of dying fires. Towering structures once made of shining metal now lay shattered, buried under ash and debris. This world had fallen days ago, claimed by creatures that believed strength alone decided fate. Among the ruins moved a single figure, a human warrior, his armor scarred, his breath steady, his eyes alert. He did not belong here, yet he walked forward as if the battlefield itself had called him. He had come on a rescue sweep, though most missions like this ended in silence and death. Alien beasts ruled this sector now, hunting anything human for sport. Their numbers were vast, their confidence absolute. To them, humans were weak, emotional, and easily broken. That belief had allowed these monsters to conquer world after world without fear. But the warrior knew better. He had seen what humans became when there was something worth protecting. As he stepped over fallen rubble, his sensors flickered with faint life signs. Weak, fragile, human. He slowed, scanning the collapsed street ahead. Then he heard it, a sound that cut through the dead air like a blade, a woman's cry. Not loud, not dramatic, but raw with terror and desperation. It was the kind of sound that carried more truth than words ever could. The warrior froze. That cry was human. He followed the sound through twisted metal and broken stone until the street opened into a wide plaza. What he saw tightened his grip on his weapon. At the center of the plaza stood a massive alien transport, half buried in rubble. Around it moved creatures straight out of nightmares, alien beasts with armored hides, glowing eyes and clawed limbs stained dark with blood. At least 20 were visible. More moved in the shadows. Near the transport, backed against a fallen wall, were two small figures. Twins, human children, no older than 6. Their clothes were torn, faces dirty with ash and fear. One clutched the other's hand so tightly that their fingers had turned white. In front of them stood a woman, their mother, her body shaking. As she spread her arms wide, trying to shield them from the monsters circling closer. The beasts laughed in their own harsh, metallic way. They enjoyed this. Fear was entertainment to them. The warrior's heart hardened. He had seen war. He had seen planets burn. But something about children facing death with no chance to fight back ignited a fury that no battlefield ever had. The alien beasts stepped closer, clearly sensing that their prey had nowhere left to run. Then the warrior stepped into the open. His boots crunched against broken stone. The sound echoed across the plaza. Every alien head turned toward him at once. For a moment, there was silence. Then the beasts roared with amusement. A single human, alone, the alien commander emerged from behind the transport, towering and confident. Its voice boomed across the plaza, filled with mockery. Another human hero, it sneered. You arrived just in time to die. The warrior did not answer. He stood tall, placing himself between the beasts and the children. His presence alone shifted the air, as if the ruins themselves were watching. The mother stared at him in disbelief. Hope flickered in her eyes, fragile but alive. The alien commander gestured outward. From every broken street and collapsed building, more beasts emerged. 10, 20, 50. They surrounded the plaza in a tightening circle. The warrior's display showed the count rising rapidly. 100 life signs, 100 alien beasts. The commander laughed again. You cannot win. The warrior finally spoke, his voice calm, controlled, and steady. That's why I'm here, the beasts charged. The mother pulled the twins close, tears streaming down her face as she whispered prayers. She was no longer sure anyone heard. The warrior activated his blade, its light cutting through the smoke like a promise. As the first beast leapt toward him, he moved not with fear, but with purpose. This was no longer just a rescue mission. This was a stand. And in the ruins of a fallen world, humanity was about to be tested by blood, by sacrifice, and by the will to protect the innocent at any cost. The plaza erupted into motion as the alien beasts rushed forward with savage speed, believing numbers alone would guarantee victory. The human warrior moved before fear could reach the children. He stepped ahead, placing his body like a living wall. His blade flashed with a cold light as the first beast leapt toward him. He struck without hesitation, cutting it down mid-air. The body hit the ground lifeless, and for a brief moment, the aliens slowed, not from fear, but from surprise. They had not expected resistance like this from a human. The mother watched with wide eyes, her breath trapped in her chest. She had already accepted death moments ago, yet here stood a stranger fighting creatures that entire armies had failed to stop. The twins clung to each other, their fear slowly mixing with disbelief. They had never seen a human stand like this, calm, steady, unshaken. The warrior did not shout or threaten. He moved with purpose, every step controlled, every strike precise. More beasts attacked. From the sides, snapping claws and burning eyes aimed at his back. He twisted, turned, and struck again, using the ruins as cover and weapon. He leapt onto broken stone, using height to his advantage, forcing the beasts to climb, slowing them down. One beast managed to slash his armor, sparks flying, as the impact sent him sliding across the ground. Pain surged through his body, but he did not fall. He pushed himself up, immediately ignoring the damage. The alien commander watched closely now. Its confidence did not fade, but something else appeared: interest. This human was different. Not reckless, not desperate, calculated. Each movement reduced their numbers slowly, steadily. The commander raised a claw, signaling another wave. The ground shook as more beasts rushed in, their roars echoing through the ruins. The warrior checked his energy levels, already dropping. He knew this fight would not be quick. He glanced back once toward the twins. Their eyes met his. In that moment, something passed between them, trust without words. The children believed he would protect them, and that belief became fuel stronger than any weapon. He activated a defensive field, briefly allowing him to push forward, carving a path through the beasts, forcing them back step by step. The aliens hissed in frustration. Their attacks grew more aggressive, less controlled. They had never needed strategy against humans before. Brute force had always been enough. But this human adapted, learning their patterns, predicting their movements. Blood stained the ground, alien blood, thick and dark. The smell filled the air, mixing with smoke and ash. The mother covered the twins' eyes, yet could not look away herself. Tears streamed down her face, not from fear now, but from something painful and unfamiliar: hope. The warrior took another heavy hit, his shield flickering, then failing. A beast slammed into him, sending him crashing into a broken pillar. Stone collapsed around him, dust filling the air. For a heartbeat, the plaza went silent. The alien commander lifted its head, sensing victory. The beasts circled the rubble, waiting. Then the warrior stood again, pulling himself free. His armor was cracked, his breathing heavier, yet his stance remained firm. He wiped blood from his mouth and raised his blade once more. The sight unsettled the aliens. They began to hesitate, not because he was stronger, but because he refused to stop. The commander stepped forward, its voice booming across the plaza, declaring that humans were weak, that emotion made them fragile, that this fight was pointless. The warrior did not answer with words. Instead, he charged forward alone into the mass of beasts, forcing them back through sheer will. Each strike cost him strength, each wound burned deeper, yet he continued moving, always positioning himself between danger and the children. The twins watched silently, understanding that this battle was not just for their lives, but for something greater, something the aliens could not comprehend. As more beasts fell, the alien commander finally understood. This human was not fighting to win. He was fighting so the others could live. And that difference changed everything. The ruins of Karen Prime bore witness as humanity proved once again that weakness was not found in compassion, but in the inability to protect. And as the next wave prepared to strike, the warrior braced himself, knowing the hardest part was still to come. The air in the plaza felt heavier as the number of alien beasts continued to grow. Their shadows stretched across the broken ground, surrounding the lone human. Warrior, like a closing trap, the ruins that once echoed with life now watched in silence. As something rare unfolded, a single man standing against a horde that believed fear was enough to end any fight. The warrior adjusted his stance, grounding himself as his mind calculated distance, movement, and timing. He knew this was no longer about speed alone, but endurance. The beasts attacked again, this time in a coordinated surge from multiple directions. They had learned from their earlier failures and now moved with discipline rather than chaos. The warrior reacted, instantly rolling beneath a sweeping claw, then rising to strike the exposed side of another creature. His blade cut deep, bringing it down, but the momentum of the attack pushed him back. He felt the strain in his muscles, the growing weight of each movement as exhaustion crept closer. The twins pressed themselves against the fallen wall, watching everything unfold. Their fear remained, but it was no longer paralyzing. They had seen the warrior take hit after hit and still rise. The idea that one human could stand against so many monsters had already changed something inside them. The mother whispered to them to stay still, to stay quiet, yet her voice trembled, not from fear alone, but from the unbearable tension of hope that could be taken away at any second. The alien commander observed from a distance, its eyes narrowing. The count had passed 50. That should have been impossible for a human to survive. The beasts were stronger, faster, and built for war. Yet this human adapted, constantly using the terrain, forcing the beasts into narrow paths where their numbers worked against them. He lured them between collapsed structures where only one or two could reach him at a time. Every decision was deliberate. A massive beast charged head-on, breaking through rubble with brute force. The warrior met it directly, bracing himself as the impact sent shockwaves through the ground. He was thrown back, sliding across the stone, his weapon nearly torn from his grip. Pain surged through his chest and his vision blurred for a moment. He stayed down just long enough to draw the beasts closer, then sprang up with a sudden strike, ending the threat in one decisive motion. The alien beasts roared in frustration. Their confidence was cracking. They were not afraid. But confused humans were supposed to run, to beg, to break. This one did none of that. He did not scream or boast. He fought in silence, as if every action spoke for him. The battlefield slowly filled with fallen bodies, yet more continued to come. Warrior glanced at his display. The number was still rising. The realization settled in that this battle would not end quickly. He was buying time, not just for the children, but for something greater, something he himself could not fully explain. Felt his strength draining, his armor system struggling to keep up. His breathing grew heavier, but his resolve remained untouched. The mother watched his movements carefully, now noticing the way he always shifted back into position between the beasts and her children. Each step was protective, each sacrifice intentional. Tears blurred her vision as she realized the truth. The stranger had no obligation to them, yet he was giving everything. The alien commander finally moved closer, its presence radiating control. It signaled a change in strategy, ordering the beast to overwhelm him without pause. No more waiting, no more circling. The plaza exploded into chaos as creatures rushed in from all sides. The warrior was forced into constant motion, striking, dodging, absorbing blows as best he could. One beast caught him from behind, tearing into his armor. Sparks flew as he fell to one knee. Pain ripped through him, sharp and deep. The twins gasped, the sound cutting through the noise of battle. For a brief, terrifying second, it looked as though this was the end. But the warrior pushed himself up again, trembling yet unbroken. His blade rose once more, stained with blood and dust. The sight shook the beasts. They hesitated just long enough to give him space. In that moment, the alien commander understood something it had never considered before. Humanity was not defined by strength alone. It was defined by refusal to surrender. And as the count climbed higher and the warrior stood his ground, the horde began to realize they were not facing prey. They were facing a stand that would not end easily. The plaza no longer looked like a battlefield, but like a grave waiting to be filled. Smoke drifted low across the ground, mixing with the heat of burning metal and the heavy scent of alien blood. The human warrior stood at the center of it all, his armor cracked, his movements slower than before. Each breath felt heavier than the last, yet he did not retreat, even as his legs trembled. He forced himself to remain upright, because falling now would mean the end for the children behind him. The alien beasts sensed the change. They could see it in the way his strikes carried. Less force in the way his recovery took longer. Their roars grew louder, more confident as they closed in once again. The alien commander raised a claw, signaling the final phase of the attack. It believed the human had reached his limit. That belief was dangerous. The twins clutched their mother as she pulled them close. Her heart pounded so hard, it felt like it might tear her apart. She could see the warrior bleeding. She could see the strain in his posture and the way he favored one side. Yet he still placed himself between danger and her children. Without thinking, she whispered words of encouragement, though she knew he could not hear them. Another wave struck, and this time it broke through. The warrior was hit from the side and thrown hard against the remains of a fallen structure. His weapon slipped from his hand, skidding across the stone. A sharp pain exploded through his body, stealing the air from his lungs. For a moment he could not move. The beast circled, sensing victory. The alien commander stepped forward, its voice echoing across the ruins, declaring that the fight was over. It mocked the idea that a single human could change anything. It spoke of numbers, of domination, of the natural order. The warrior lay still, dust covering his armor, blood soaking into the ground beneath him. The mother screamed, not in fear but in despair. Her voice echoed across the plaza, raw and broken. The twins cried out, reaching toward the fallen warrior. Their small voices cut deeper than any weapon. Slowly the warrior's hand moved. He pressed it against the ground and tried to rise. Pain shot through every nerve. His vision blurred, but he forced himself up inch by inch until he knelt. His body shook violently, refusing to obey, yet his mind pushed forward. He did not look at the alien commander. He looked at the children. That was enough. He dragged himself to his feet, swaying unsteady but standing. The beasts hesitated again, uncertain. The human should not have been able to rise yet here. He was broken, but unyielding. He reached for his weapon and pulled it back into his grip. His hands trembled, but they did not let go. The commander reacted with fury, ordering all remaining beasts to attack at once. The ground shook as they charged, claws tearing into stone, teeth snapping through smoke. The warrior braced himself, knowing this would cost him everything. He activated his final reserve, burning through the last of his energy without hesitation. The fight became brutal and desperate. No elegance, no precision, only survival. Each strike was slower, heavier. Each block sent pain screaming through his body. He took hits. He could not avoid his armor failing piece by piece. Yet for every step the beasts took forward, he forced them back again. The mother watched through tears, understanding the truth of what she was seeing. This human was not fighting to live. He was fighting to protect, and that choice demanded a price. She pressed the twins' faces against her chest, shielding them from the sight as much as she could, though the sounds of battle still reached them. Finally the warrior staggered backward, dropping to one knee. His weapon fell again, clattering against the ground. His body refused to move further. He had reached the edge of his strength. The beasts closed in, ready to end it. He bowed his head, not in defeat but in acceptance. He had done enough. He had bought time, and sometimes that was all a human could do. The alien commander stepped forward to deliver the final blow, unaware that something had already changed. In the ruins of Karen Prime, the cost of protection had been paid in blood and pain and will, and that cost would not be forgotten. Not by the mother, not by the children, and not by the galaxy that was watching without yet understanding what it had just witnessed. The moment stretched thin as silence pressed down on the plaza. The alien beasts hovered close, sensing the end, yet uncertain. Something in the air had shifted. The human warrior remained on one knee, his head lowered, his body shaking from exhaustion. Blood ran freely now, soaking into the cracked stone beneath him. To the beasts he looked finished, broken, empty. But inside him something burned. It was not strength left in muscle or power stored in armor. It was will raw and unmeasured, the kind that does not fade when the body fails. The warrior inhaled slowly, feeling the pain instead of resisting it, letting it remind him why he was still there. Every wound told the same story. He had stood where he was needed. Behind him the twins watched. In terrified silence, the mother held them close, whispering words. Through tears, her voice carried desperation, gratitude, and hope all at once. She did not know the warrior's name. She did not know his past. All she knew was that he had given everything. For them, the alien commander stepped forward, ready to finish it. Its shadow stretched over the fallen human. Its voice echoed once more, declaring the end of resistance, declaring humanity defeated. The warrior lifted his head. His eyes met the commander's. Gaze steady and unbroken, he pushed one hand against the ground and slowly rose. His legs protested violently, threatening to collapse, yet he forced them to hold. The beasts froze. The impossible was happening again. He stood. No energy reserves remained. No armor systems responded. Yet he remained upright, held together by something the aliens could not measure. The warrior straightened his posture, wiped blood from his face, and reached for his weapon. His grip was weak but certain. The commander recoiled. Just slightly enough to notice. The warrior moved forward, not with speed, but with resolve, each step heavy, each breath burning. He did not rush, he did not hesitate. The beasts lunged, and he met them head-on, blocking, striking, advancing inch by inch. His movements were slower, but every action carried intent. He turned the battlefield into a narrow corridor, forcing the beasts to approach in small numbers. Their advantage faded with each fallen body. Panic spread among them, now true panic. Their attacks grew wild, their formation breaking. They could not understand why this human would not fall. The twins watched their fear transform into awe. The mother could not stop her tears. Now they fell freely, not from despair, but from overwhelming gratitude. She pressed her hand to her mouth as she watched the impossible unfold. One by one, the beasts fell. The alien commander shouted orders, but they came too late. The horde was breaking. Confidence had turned into fear, and fear into retreat. Some beasts tried to pull back, others hesitated, just long enough to be struck down. The warrior did not chase. He simply held his ground, protecting what mattered. The final beast charged in desperation. Its roar echoed across the ruins. The warrior waited until the last second, then struck with everything he had left. The creature fell hard, lifeless at his feet. Silence returned. The plaza stood still once more. Smoke drifting slowly through the air. Bodies lay scattered across the ground. The human warrior remained standing barely. His weapon slipped from his hand. As his strength finally gave way, he fell to his knees, then to the ground, breathing shallow but alive. The alien commander stared in disbelief, then turned and retreated. Its remaining forces followed, fleeing from something they could not defeat. Not with numbers, not with power. The mother released a sound that was half sob, half laugh. She rushed forward, dropping beside the warrior, pressing her forehead to the ground. In gratitude, her tears fell onto the stone beside him, soaking into the earth that had nearly claimed him. The twins stepped forward, slowly looking at the human who had saved them. They did not speak. They simply stood in quiet respect in that moment. The ruins of Karen Prime held a truth the galaxy would one day learn. Humanity did not rise because it was strongest. Humanity rose because it refused to surrender when others would. And the warrior lying among the fallen was proof of that truth. Written in blood and will, the battlefield no longer echoed with roars or explosions. Only the quiet crackle of distant fires remained. The ruins of Karen Prime seemed to breathe again, as if the world itself had been holding its breath. The human warrior lay on the cold stone, his chest rising and falling slowly. Each breath was a struggle, yet each one proved he was still alive. Around him the remains of alien beasts stood as silent proof of what had been endured. The mother knelt beside him, shaking. Her hands hovered over his broken armor, unsure where to touch, afraid that the smallest movement might cause him pain. Tears streamed freely down her face, falling onto the cracked ground and onto the warrior himself. She tried to speak, but no words came, only soft broken sounds of relief and disbelief escaped her throat. The twins stepped closer, their small feet careful among the debris. They looked at the warrior with wide eyes, not afraid anymore, but filled with something new. Respect. The older twin reached out hesitantly, touching the edge of the warrior's armor, as if confirming he was real. The warrior stirred slightly and turned his head enough to see them. His eyes were tired but gentle. They were safe, that knowledge alone was enough. The mother finally found her voice. It shook as she thanked him over and over again. Her words were simple but heavy with meaning. She told him she had watched her world fall. She told him she had believed humanity was forgotten, abandoned by the stars, and yet here he was, proof that humans still stood for one another. Her tears fell harder now, carrying the weight of fear, loss, and overwhelming gratitude. She pressed her forehead to the ground beside him, unable to stop herself. Her cry echoed across the empty plaza, not loud, but filled with everything she had held inside. That sound carried further than any weapon ever could. The warrior listened in silence. He did not try to rise. He had nothing left to prove. His body ached in ways he could not name, yet his mind was calm. He had done what he came to do. That was enough. In the distance, alien eyes watched from the shadows. The retreating forces paused, looking back at the scene unfolding before them. They did not understand why a warrior would give everything for strangers, why tears could carry such power, why the smallest lives were worth such sacrifice. The twins knelt beside their mother, holding her arms, trying to comfort her in the only way they knew. They did not cry now. Their fear had passed, replaced by a quiet strength, born from what they had witnessed. They had seen what humanity truly meant. The warrior slowly pushed himself onto one elbow. The movement sent pain through him, but he ignored it. He looked at the mother and spoke softly, telling her the children would be taken to safety soon, that others would come. She nodded, unable to speak, trusting his words without question. He looked at the twins again, offering them a small, tired smile. The gesture stayed with them, carving itself into memory, deeper than any scar. The mother finally lifted her head, meeting his gaze. Her eyes were red, swollen, yet fierce. She told him her tears were not weakness. They were proof that what he had done mattered, that his pain had meaning, that humanity still lived through acts like his. Those words reached him deeper than any wound. In that moment, something shifted beyond the ruins, beyond this broken world. A message, unspoken but powerful, spread through those who watched. Humans were not just fighters. They were protectors. They were defined by who they chose to save. The warrior lay back, closing his eyes briefly, letting the sounds of breathing and quiet sobs surround him. He allowed himself rest, knowing the worst had passed. The alien commander, watching from afar, turned away, its certainty shattered. It had seen power before, but never purpose like this. It carried that knowledge back into the stars, where it would spread slowly and dangerously. As rescue signals finally pierced the silence, the mother held her children close once more. Her tears slowed but did not stop. They were no longer tears of fear, but of gratitude and truth. In the ruins of Karen Prime, humanity had been defined not by victory alone, but by a mother's tears falling beside a warrior who had chosen to stand when no one else would. Dawn crept slowly over the ruins of Karen Prime, casting pale light across broken towers and silent streets. The fires had burned low, leaving behind smoke that drifted lazily through the air. What had once been a battlefield now felt like a place of remembrance. The human warrior lay where he had fallen, his armor scorched and shattered, yet his presence still commanded the space around him. Rescue ships arrived quietly, their engines humming with restraint, as if even machines understood the weight of the moment. Human medics moved carefully, lifting the warrior onto a stretcher, stabilizing his wounds. Their expressions carried respect rather than urgency. They had seen the damage and they knew survival itself was a victory. The mother stood nearby, holding the twins close as the warrior was taken away. She watched every movement, afraid to blink, afraid that if she looked away, this miracle might fade. Her children stood tall, no longer hiding. Their small hands were clenched, not in fear, but in resolve. They had learned something that day, something that would shape them forever. As the ships prepared to leave, the alien forces remained distant, watching from the shadows. None dared approach. The memory of what one human had done was still too fresh, too dangerous. The alien commander observed in silence. Its belief in dominance cracked beyond repair. It had learned that numbers could fail, and that emotion could be a weapon far stronger than claws or armor. The story of the stand spread quickly, carried through signals, whispers, and survivor accounts. Across human worlds and alien territories, alike the same question was asked. How did one human defeat 100 beasts? The answer was never simple, because the truth was not about strength or skill alone. It was about choice. The warrior awoke briefly during transport. His vision blurred, but he heard voices, felt movement. He did not ask if he had won. He asked only if the children were safe. When the medic nodded, he closed his eyes again at peace. The mother watched the ship rise into the sky, carrying the man who had saved her family. She placed her hand over her heart, whispering a promise that his sacrifice would never be forgotten. She would tell the story to anyone who would listen, not as a tale of war, but as a lesson of what it meant to be human. In time, the ruins of Karen Prime would be reclaimed. Life would return slowly, carefully. Yet something else would remain embedded in that world, and others like it. A truth written without words. Humanity was not defined by conquest or survival alone. It was defined by the willingness to stand between danger and the innocent. The twins grew older, carrying the memory with them. They remembered the silence before the battle, the fear in their mother's voice, and the moment a human stepped forward without hesitation. They remembered the way he stood when he should have fallen, and that memory became their strength. Among alien worlds, the story changed. Strategies shifted and caution replaced arrogance. Humans were no longer seen as weak. They were seen as unpredictable, dangerous, not because of their weapons, but because of their values. The warrior recovered slowly, his body bearing scars that would never fade, yet he carried them without regret. When asked why he fought, he gave the same answer every time: someone needed help. That answer spread further than any threat ever could, and so across the stars, when worlds fell and cries echoed through ruins, there would be those who remembered Karen Prime. There would be those who hesitated before calling humans weak. There would be those who understood that humanity's greatest power was not force, but purpose. In the end, this was not just a story of battle. It was a story of identity, of a species that chose compassion over fear, protection over survival, self-sacrifice over surrender. This was humanity defined